Hi, Himanshu Maniacs. So, I'm sorry to inform you that I won't be joining Harsh on this podcast. Secondarily, because I was sick at the time of recording this, but primarily because Harsh doesn't want me to be on it, which is obviously unconstitutional and against the human rights. So, join me in trashing this piece of shit's house on 1st September if this podcast gets more than one view, and please enjoy the rest of the podcast. Bye, guys.
Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of Mood Posting Hours. Today we have a little serious topic with us, which is dealing with loss. And the reason I really wanted to choose this topic because this is not something that we generally talk about in our culture and in our country. Because the minute you start this conversation with a friend of yours, it gets a little heavy, and there's just there's no way that you can proceed with it. And I think it's going to be difficult today for us as well, because I have the admin of Stated Thoughts and a really good friend of mine, Anuj, here with me. Hey Anuj, what's up? Thank you for coming to the podcast, man.
Hi Harsh, pleasure is all mine यार.
नहीं, वो थोड़ा फॉर्मल हम दिखा देना ताकि लोगों को भी लगे, ओह कितना प्रोफेशनल पॉडकास्ट है इनका, इनको क्या पता हमारी ऐसे कब 1.5 साल से एक दूसरे के डीएम में रंडी रोना कर रहे
क्या बोलूं मैं, तू बता दे, मैं वही बोलता हूँ.
हैं। नहीं यार, तो Anuj, यार, dealing with loss, and when we're talking about dealing with loss, right, it's all about perspective, because loss can be of so many things. जैसे अगर कोई एक आदमी सुनेगा, उसके लिए हार्ट ब्रेक, लॉस ऑफ अ पोटेंशियल लाइफ पार्टनर इज व्हाट दे विल थिंक। और किसी के लिए जॉब अगर छूटी है तो उनको जॉब लॉस हो रहा है। किसी के लिए अगर कोई क्लोज वन की डेथ हुई है, राइट, इन द कोविड 19 सिचुएशन, अभी सो मेनी पीपल हैव लॉस्ट सो मेनी क्लोज वंस, एंड तो सबके पर्सपेक्टिव में आई विल ट्राई टू कीप दिस जेनेरिक कि हाँ, एटलीस्ट एवरीवन गेट समथिंग आउट ऑफ इट, एंड इट्स नॉट समथिंग दैट जस्ट वी आर सेइंग समथिंग for the sake, just for sake of making everyone sad, but also at the end of the by the end of the podcast, this would be something that people could listen to whenever they are going through something, and they sort of feel not alone, and they sort of feel like they, like they, they sort of feel better, right? So what have your experiences been when we talk about loss?
So, like you said, there are various kind of losses that you suffer, like a loss of a potential life partner. So, yes, even I have had that, and it's not something that some like most of us have already been through, but हमको पता नहीं है कि कैसे डील करना है, बट हम लोग इस दौर से गुजर चुके हैं. So that is like one of the you know that most common thing हम आज के टाइम पे है, like heartbreaks and everything, but people don't really know how to deal with them. So थोड़ा टाइम लगता है. Everyone has their own way of dealing, you know uh, losses से कैसे डील करना होता है. And surely सबका अलग ही होता होगा. तू बता, तेरा कैसा है यार?
यार, मेरा भी, as you said, right, I have had, I don't know, potential life partner or something, but yes, I've had breakups, and yes, I'm terrible with dealing with losses, right? And it's not, for me, it's not just related to relationships, but like even when the you have close friends, or jab you are not on talking terms anymore and you have lost the bond that you shared with them, even those things, it becomes a little difficult for me to deal with. So how did you actually, how was it difficult for you? Because I think सबके लिए अलग अलग रीजन से डिफिकल्ट होता है, मतलब सबका सबकी कहानी मोर और लेस सेम होती है, पर उसके साथ डील करने का तरीका और उसके साथ डील करने में जो डिफिकल्टीज आती है ना, वो सबके साथ अलग होती है। लाइक बहुत लोगों के होते हैं कि ना, देर आर जस्ट अ फ्यू कॉन्वर्जेशन और फ्यू वर्ड्स दैट आर लाइक ट्रिगर पॉइंट्स, और कुछ जगहें ट्रिगर पॉइंट्स होती हैं, और कि मतलब द इट दे सॉर्ट ऑफ ब्रेक द कंप्लीट प्रोसेस आउट, कि तुमने कितनी मुश्किल से अपने आप को पूरा खड़ा किया होगा उस चीज से रिकवर करके, एंड देन दैट वन ट्रिगर पॉइंट कम्स इन, and that sort of breaks. I think that is one of the major things that prevent you from moving on, or actually getting over a loss. So in terms of relationship, right? What has been that one thing for you?
सो या लाइक तुमने सही बोला कि जैसे ऐसे यू डोंट हैव एनी यूजर मैनुअल लाइक कि ये पढ़ो और ये करो तो तुम इस लॉस से डील करने के लिए तुम्हारा बहुत आसान हो जाएगा। सबका अलग अलग तरीका होता है। जैसे मेरा मतलब आई हैव हैड माय फैमिली लाइक जब मेरा हुआ था ब्रेकअप देन दैट टाइम आई वाज वेरी फॉर्चुनेट लाइक माय फैमिली वाज वेरी सपोर्टिव। बट आजकल के टाइम पे सपोर्टिव हो गए बट like traditionally our family or our Indian parents, they like most of the people, like they don't even share about their relationship with their parents. So how are they going to share about their breakup? So that is something which we should
Right.
also do it. Like हम expect करते हैं कि parents हमारे साथ communicate करें, but हम ये नहीं सोचते कि हमें भी communicate करना चाहिए। Like अगर हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे parents हमको support करें जब हमारा breakup हो जाए, तो हमें भी ये first step लेना चाहिए कि हम उनको बताएं कि मेरा रिलेशनशिप है। एंड लाइक पहले हमने काफी सुना है कि पेरेंट्स आर द फर्स्ट वन दैट कम टू नो द फेक फ्रेंड स्पॉट कर लिए या फिर कैसे ऐसे बहुत सारे तुमने ये सब पढ़े होंगे कोट्स वोट्स। पेरेंट्स आर द फर्स्ट वन टू स्पॉट योर फेक फ्रेंड्स। वैसे ही अगर हम लोग उनको अपने गर्लफ्रेंड बॉयफ्रेंड से मिलाएंगे तो मे बी दे हैव अ बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग अबाउट द पर्सन और उनका एक्सपीरियंस कह लो। तो अगर हम ये सब शेयर करेंगे तभी जाके हम उनकी सपोर्ट के लिए एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हैं। सो या मेरा जैसे तुमने टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन लाइक आई हैव हैड माय फैमिली एंड अदर देन दैट माय फ्रेंड्स वर आल्सो लाइक रियली सपोर्टिव व्हेन आई हैड लाइक आई लेट मी गिव यू अ ब्रीफ लाइक आई हैड माय रिलेशनशिप फॉर 9 years। सो फॉर मी टू गो थ्रू दिस ब्रेकअप वाज वन टेरिबल हेल ऑफ अ थिंग लाइक मुझे इतना कुछ प्रॉब्लम मतलब दैट पर्सन हैड बिकम सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू मी लाइक मेरे को कुछ समझ में ही नहीं आता था लाइक नॉट बिकॉज मैं प्यार में अंधा हो गया था दैट इज नॉट बट दैट पर्सन बिकम्स अ पार्ट ऑफ योर लाइफ टू एन एक्सटेंड दैट व्हेन दैट पर्सन इज नॉट देयर इन योर लाइफ सडनली तो इतनी प्रॉब्लम्स होने लग जाती है बिकॉज फ्रॉम मॉर्निंग टू नाइट मतलब हम पूरा दिन बात करते हैं। और पूरा दिन मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि हर एक मिनट में कोई बात कर रहा है या कुछ बट यू शेयर दोज थिंग्स जो तुम्हारी डेली डेली एक्टिविटीज होती है व्हाट यू गो क्या चल रहा है ये सब तुम शेयर करते हो। तो वो सब ऐसा इतना पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ हो जाता है जब वो बंदा या बंदी नहीं रहती है तुम्हारे साथ तो इट बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट। तो वही तो इनिशियली दैट थिंग इज समथिंग विच कैन मेक यू मैड लाइक फक कोई है नहीं क्या करना। तो इस टाइम पे सबसे जरूरी होता है कि कोई अपने दोस्त हो या फिर कोई अपने फैमिली मैं तो बोलूँ सबसे बेस्ट तो पेरेंट्स होते हैं यार। लाइक अपने पेरेंट्स को तुम अगर बता दोगे दे आर द बेस्ट वन टू सपोर्ट यू। फिर फ्रेंड्स एंड ऑल या इफ यू हैव गुड फ्रेंड्स देन इवन दैट विल हेल्प यू।
Right. But and to add on to that, I just want to say ki there are many things that are very generic when it comes to a breakup. Like everyone has ki they have these few stages, right? Like सबको starting में लगता है कि no this cannot be happening, and there's that one ray of hope कि oh this will get back together or things will get better. And there are these few doubts in the head, or there is few thoughts in the head ki na, okay, this happened, and but I'm not satisfied. Like there are stages where you are very confused, where you feel like you don't want that person in your life anymore, but you want what you had, right? And अनुज इसकी एक बहुत अच्छी थ्योरी है मेरे पास।
आई लाइक टू कट योर वंस। तुमने बोला कि ये जो जो स्टेज जिसकी बात की ये यूजुअली पता है कब आता है जब हम थोड़ा सा मूव ऑन कर जाते हैं ना तब हमको ऐसा कुछ उनकी कुछ छोटी मोटी चीज या फिर कुछ ऐसा चीज याद आता है तब हम एकदम वो वापस ट्रिगर बैक हो जाता है। सो दैट इज लाइक दैट वन स्टेज दैट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट। या प्लीज शेयर योर अभी।
So it's like when you meet a person, right? You look at them, and let's just say if that person is a person X in your head, ki ha, and X. So that person is X, and you create an image of that person in your head. Let's say अगर तुम एक किसी उस इंसान से starting में मिले हो, and they're all kind and everything. So like your image of them in your head is like, huh, good. Like their image of so the image you develop of them in your head is kind ki, huh, okay, this person is kind. And as time progresses, right, you sort of start ignoring their flaws, No, and or not. I don't want to say flaws, but you start ignoring their red flags or their shortcomings. Because flaws is okay. Everyone has flaws. I have flaws, and I think every person that I have dated has flaws, and they have accepted mine, and I have tried to accept theirs. But there are these shortcomings, there are these red flags that we start to ignore, which shouldn't be done. We sort of take those things as flaws, where if let's say your partner is emotionally unavailable, and or it's emotionally abusive, in those cases, and if it starts affecting you, you do not blame them. You just sort of start learn you just learn how to adjust with that, even if it bothers you, and you just sort of ignore your own pain or your own problems with that, and that is not the right thing to do. And as time progresses, the image of the person you're developing in your head, it is very different from what the person actually is. So there comes a time when there is literally very few similarities between the person X and the image of them that you have created in your head, which is Y. And one day comes when you realize that the person Y is what who you are in love with, and the person X, or the person that you thought you were in love with, is not actually that person. And at that point, you feel so helpless, because the person that you have created in your head doesn't actually exist. And you want someone to be there, and that person does not actually exist. And that is when I think things fuck up. And going coming back to the moving on part, moving on in aaj ke time is very difficult, because it's like living with a person, right? The person is in a separate room, and you have to just stay in your room, and you're in the same house. The other person is a different room, you're in a different room, and you cannot talk to that person. Like, you really want to talk to the person, but your mind is saying that you don't have to talk to that person. How long will you be able to control it? Because in the digital time that we live in, right, it's just that the other person is a text or a call away. So you always know that, oh, this person, I can talk to him, and then you are constantly reading about them, their name sort of comes up, and that makes it even more difficult. And then there are mutual friends who talk about them, and all these things, I don't know, they just sort of build up in your head, and they make it even more difficult to move on, right?
Exactly, yeah. So coming back to what you were saying, like प्रायोरिटीज पे हम उनको ज्यादा प्रायोरिटी देने लग जाते हैं, तो वही मतलब आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड लाइक हम लोग जब भी रिलेशनशिप में जाते हैं, लाइक सबके साथ होता है ये, मैं सबकी बात कर रहा हूँ, मेरे खुद की, लाइक व्हाई डू वी कीप अदर्स फर्स्ट, लाइक मतलब हम हर चीज में, इंसान की फितरत ऐसी होती है ना कि हम इतने सेल्फिश होते हैं, लाइक कोई कितना भी बोल लो कि यार आई एम सेल्फलेस, ये मेरे को मतलब मैं नहीं हूँ सेल्फलेस, बट हमेशा जब रिलेशनशिप में आते हैं ना, तो हम हमेशा हम ज्यादा देते हैं। ऐसा क्यों होता है यार? लाइक व्हाई आर वी गिविंग मोर एंड रिसीविंग लेस? व्हाई कांट वी बी ऑल्सो सेल्फिश, लाइक यू सेड, लाइक जो जब रेड फ्लैग्स जो होते हैं, जो हमें दूसरों की उनकी खामियां नजर आने लग जाती है, तो हम हमेशा इग्नोर करते हैं। लाइक व्हाई व्हेन वी नो दैट यार ये आगे जाके बहन हम लोग की लगने वाली है, then why do we go there again? Like मतलब I don't understand, like मैंने तो from my last relationship, not the one that was the major one, but the from one of my last relationship, I've learned that I should keep myself first and my happiness first. Like fuck, like ठीक है यार, बहुत उनको भी रख लिया, to keep them also is good, like, but to have your happiness over them is important.
So, Anuj, yes, I completely agree. And I think you have shared this with me. And I am not sure if you would be comfortable talking about it. But dealing with the loss of a parent, right? How is that? Like, how is that? Because I think I know you have told me that you have had to face it, right?
Exactly.
So how difficult was that for you? Because to be very honest, every person that I've talked to regarding this, right, like everyone gets very uncomfortable while talking about this, and every person I've talked to about this, they have shared the same, that yes, this is one of the biggest fears that they have. And I think this is imbibed at a very young stage, because जब आप जैसे बच्चे भी होते हो ना, तो आपको कुछ कुछ जगह पे डर रहता है कि आई लाइक यो दैट इज द ओनली सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी दैट यू हैव, एंड दैट इज लाइक I that cannot happen. I cannot lose this person, right? And sort of कहीं ना कहीं हमारे इंडियन कल्चर में उसको बेनिफिट भी करते हैं, मतलब उससे उससे बेनिफिट भी निकाला जाता है. बिकॉज इफ यू टॉक अबाउट लेट्स से कुछ तुम काम नहीं करते ना पसंद का, सो योर पेरेंट वुड बी लाइक आज तो मैं हूँ, एक दिन मैं नहीं रहूंगी, तब तुम्हें पता चलेगा. एंड दैट लाइक दैट young you, it sort of goes that one trigger place goes like, no, I cannot lose them, and you do it immediately. And that is, I think that has been common with every uh, child,
Every
every household,
Yeah, exactly.
every household, every Indian household. But I don't think, even after talking about it, हम बागबान देख लेते हैं, हम सब कर लेते हैं, हमें रियलाइजेशन होता है from time to time that our parents are getting old, but no one is ever prepared for that to happen. कि of no, this cannot happen to me, like मुझे तो नहीं होगा, मेरे को जानना, मेरे को सोचना भी नहीं उसके बारे में, right? But then it happened to you, and how did you deal with it?
So yeah, coming back, जैसे जब when you had invited me to this podcast, so the first thing that came up to my mind is like कि जब तुमने मुझे बोला कि you have to talk about it, so the first loss जो सबसे बड़ा जो था was obviously losing my dad. So that thing immediately came to my mind, कि मुझे थोड़ा इसके बारे में I was a little bit, कि करना चाहिए कि नहीं इसको, but you know definitely I think, to talk about it will definitely help me as well as others also, कि कुछ ना कुछ किसी ना किसी की तो हेल्प हो ही जाएगी यार. और I'll tell you कि it's very difficult, and if you are going through it especially during this time, कोविड का टाइम है, तो I will just tell you कि यार ये inevitable है, सबके साथ होना है यार. मतलब किसी के साथ आज हो गया है, किसी के साथ कल होएगा, किसी के साथ बाद में होगा, बट लाइक नो वन इज गोइंग टू आउटलिव देयर पेरेंट्स. मतलब सबके साथ ये होना है, एवरी वन इज गोइंग टू फेस दिस, लाइक लेट्स बी वेरी रियल, कि कितना भी हम इस चीज इस फैक्ट से भाग जाए, बट इट इज गोइंग टू कम. So I believe that one of the major thing that kept me sane during this time was this time, मतलब जब when I lost my dad तभी की बात कर रहा हूँ, तो, was responsibilities. मेरे पे इतनी सारी responsibilities आ गई, and that too so quickly that I had no time to grieve. मेरे पास अभी भी if you tell me I have not grieved enough, मैं रोया नहीं हूँ इतना जितना मुझे रोना चाहिए था या चाहिए होना, जितना मुझे करना चाहिए था, बिकॉज मेरे पे इतनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज इतनी क्विकली आ गई. एंड इवन दो आई एम नॉट द एल्डेस्ट इन माई फैमिली, बट देन टू मैं मतलब आई हैव एन एल्डर ब्रदर, बट देन टू मेरे पे इतनी जल्दी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज आ गई, एंड यू लर्न सो क्विकली. लाइक a lot of my friends have told me, Anuj, like the Anuj that we knew before, your dad passed away was a boy, and now after this thing has happened, and we have seen you change, like you have become a man. So in a way, this thing happened to me. मैं नहीं बोलूंगा कि बहुत अच्छा हुआ, क्योंकि obviously I would love to have my dad with,
Mm-hmm.
you know forever. Like that was one person who stood by me
Right.
like हमेशा. तो मैं वो नहीं बोलूंगा कि मेरे साथ अच्छा हुआ, बट
Mm.
मैंने इतनी सारी चीजें सीख लिया है, बिकम सो इंडिपेंडेंट. और मतलब इट्स मतलब बहुत आई हैव नेवर थॉट कि मैं ये सब कर सकता हूँ, और वो सब मैंने किया है. सो इन अ वे यू शुड सी कि आगे इट्स गोइंग टू बी बेटर. इफ अगर कुछ बुरा हुआ है, देन देयर इज डेफिनेटली समथिंग दैट इज गोइंग टू बी गुड दैट्स कमिंग अप.
And Anuj, इसमें एक और चीज पता क्या है? I agree that dealing with it is difficult, but one thing that I've seen is the society sort of doesn't help you, even though it plays a big part in it. Because I think as a society, सबको थोड़ा इस चीज के लिए मतलब people are not even qualified to have this conversation. Like if I was supposed to come up and talk to a friend of mine, right, who has had to go with this, I literally, when the minute someone says that, oh, the parent is not with them anymore, I freeze, and I really don't know what to say, because I cannot say that, oh, it's okay, it's not that bad, because in my head it is the worst thing that I could think that could happen, right? And to just imagine someone actually going through it, my heart goes out for them. it's like, oh my god, I feel so much pain and sadness for you, but I cannot tell ki I cannot uh, say talk about it. तो आई थिंक वहां पे भी हम लोग को थोड़ा करना चाहिए एंड देर आर दीज अदर थिंग्स राइट बिकॉज सम पीपल दे फील द वे आई फील राइट बट देन सम पीपल आर दीज ओवर स्मार्ट who think that they're trying to help but they really don't because then there are people like यार it has been 2 महीने हो गए और यार तुम क्यों रो रहे हो तुम तो लड़के हो और जैसे you said you have an elder brother right so I think I'm pretty sure there would have been people who will be like अरे तुम लोग क्यों रो रहे हो तुम्हें तो मम्मी को संभालना है तुम तो लड़के हो.
Exactly. Which is very wrong. Like, like even my mom has an equal right to grieve, and even I have an equal right to grieve. Yeah, because मैं मतलब to lose a parent is something that is very devastating. और जैसे तुमने बात किया सोसाइटी में, अरे मैं मतलब सोसाइटी तो is like something they are not going to help. Like, you know, people just, I don't think like people really मतलब उनको कुछ फील होता है इस बारे में, क्योंकि आई हैव बिन थ्रू इट। एंड मैं नहीं बोलूंगा सब लोग खराब होते हैं यार, सब देयर आर गुड पीपल एंड देयर आर बैड पीपल, बट लाइक वेरी फ्यू पीपल कम आउट एंड हेल्प यू इन दिस एक्चुअल टाइम। ये टाइम पे अगर तुमको कोई हेल्प करता है, दैट इज समथिंग यू शुड बी वेरी, मतलब एक डेफिनेशन हो जाती है सही बंदे की मेरे हिसाब से तो। बट स्टिल आई कैनॉट क्लियरली से कि अगर ऐसे टाइम पे कोई हेल्प कर रहा है तो वो अच्छा ही है या वो बुरा है, ऐसा नहीं है। बट स्टिल ऐसे सोसाइटी शुड रियली कम आउट, एंड सोसाइटी के अपने फ्रेंड्स, अगर जैसे तुमने बोला, जैसे कोई तुम्हें शेयर करता है कि दिस पर्सन डज नॉट हैव अ पेरेंट और मदर नहीं है, फादर, तो योर हार्ट इमीडिएटली गोज आउट। एंड आई ऑल्सो फेल्ट द सेम, मेरे साथ भी सेम होता था जब मेरे को मतलब मेरे इस इंसिडेंट होने से पहले जब कोई मुझे बोलता था ऐसा नहीं है, तो मुझे आई यूज टू इमीडिएटली सिंपैथाइज विद देम, और एकदम मतलब एकदम वैसे फील हो जाता था यार कि आई कंप्लीटली रिलेट टू व्हाट यू से यार।
एंड आई थिंक वही है कि ना हमें सॉर्ट ऑफ सिंपथाइज नहीं करके वी हैव टू
एम्पैथाइज।
एम्पथाइज विद देम बिकॉज आई थिंक sympathy is the biggest bitch that exists and empathy is like the kind-hearted soul. Like sympathy is Komolika and empathy is Gopi Bhau.
एग्जैक्टली।
People think it's not cool to be Gopi Bhau, but it is very cool to be Gopi
अरे
Bhau.
यार
And
कितना
I'm just trying to,
यार गोपी बहू यार, मतलब क्या ही कितनी प्यारी, मतलब मैंने ट्राई टू बी लाइक गोपी बहू नॉट।
इसके अलावा पता है एक और चीज है that what we think like our idea of loss is very different from actual loss. Like हम लोग को लगता है कि when we will lose something, it will be just sadness, and that is not because sadness is there, but there are so many more things. There is shock, there is disbelief. It's like पहले तो समझ में आता है यार ये अपने साथ हुआ है and then we're like ओ अपने साथ अगर ये होगा तो अपने को ऐसा लगेगा एंड देयर इज गिल्ट एज आई सेड कि ना मतलब यार फक काश मैं ऐसा कर लेता काश मैं वो अब चला गया लेकिन काश मैं उसको ऐसा बोल देता या फिर यार मैंने अगर ये नहीं किया होता तो प्रॉब्ली आई वुडंट हैव लॉस्ट दैट पर्सन एंड द सेम गोस फॉर जॉब एज वेल कि अगर आप लाइक इफ यू लूजिंग आउट योर जॉब इज लाइक फक यार मेरी मेरी नौकरी चली गई और if I had worked वहां पे ठीक से then probably I would still have my job and there's just this fear कि यार that person is not there anymore how will I fucking live without it like वो ना एक डर सा जहन में बैठ जाता है it's like I didn't need that person for any strength like even if you didn't need the person like अगर तुम्हारा if you're losing out on your parent that is a different matter because they were sort of contributing to your sense of security and the same is with the job but like वो एक fear हमेशा रहता है कि ना वो एक anxiousness हो जाती है एक helplessness हो जाती है एक insecurity हो जाती है restlessness होती है and ना panic attacks right you
भाई
have panic attack and I'm not even touching base on the panic attack subject because you might need a complete fucking episode on panic attacks but हाँ
एग्जैक्टली।
वो भी होता है यार और मतलब दिस एंगर दिस कि ना वहाँ यार सबकी गलती है मतलब किसी की गलती नहीं है लेकिन सबकी गलती है मतलब आई डोंट फकिंग केयर दुनिया मदर चोद है राइट
एग्जैक्टली एग्जैक्टली राइट। हम यही सोचते हैं कि हम किसी को पॉइंट आउट नहीं करना चाहते कि इसकी गलती है, बट हम यही सोचते हैं बहन, तो सबने कुछ ना कुछ तो किया ही होगा, द फकिंग यूनिवर्स, यू नो ऐसा कुछ यूनिवर्स से बोलते हैं ना कि ऐसे सारी कायनात ने कुछ बहचोद कर दिया और ये हमारे साथ ही हो गया।
शाहरुख खान ने बोला था कि पूरी कायनात कुछ भी कर सकती है तो पूरी कायनात ने कुछ किया होगा तो यार ये ना एक
हाँ यार।
क्लस्टर फक ऑफ दीज 5 इमोशंस और 6 इमोशंस दैट इज व्हाट combines to become grief. And अगर ना इनमें से एक इमोशन रहता है ना तो हमें डील करना में मुश्किल होती है. Like if I'm angry, I'll need time to cool down. If I'm feeling guilty, I'll take even more time to cool down. If there's sadness, it's like हाँ वो तो अलग है. But when all these five sort of come at you together, right? तब ना समझ ही नहीं आता. And no one can even see that you're going through. Like physically कुछ होता है ना यार तब समझ में आता है. Like and these have physical effects too, which might differ to everyone, like from person to person. But मतलब जो इमोशनल चीज है ना ये तो ना तो कोई देख पाता है यार. एंड किसी को तुम एक्सप्लेन भी नहीं कर सकते. You're sort of just living through it. Like your life experiences become difficult. Like if you have a job and if you lose someone, तुम्हारी जॉब पे अफेक्ट होता है वो. If you have a job and you lose that job, तो तुम्हारा relationship, like let's say you just got married, your relationship with your wife or any loved one, your parents and anything, that sort of uh, gets hampered. तो मतलब और ना लोग समझते ही नहीं है. So it's just important that at least we as a person, like if we are going through it, we help ourselves out. I agree that we should help out our friends and anyone else going through it as well, but it's very different. Everyone works in their own way and you cannot always figure out कि कैसे क्या चीज तुम कर सकते हो और कैसे तुम किसको हेल्प कर सकते हो. So the best thing is at least you should know how to help yourself, right? So again, like is there's denial, there's anger, there's always that like कुछ भी कर दिया वो मेरे को वापस हो जाए जो भी था. This depression, that that is there, that is very real. In case any Indian parent is listening to this, depression is not something that's made up in their minds. Depression is fucking real. Like do not ever tell anyone कि the depression is not real. मैं तुम्हारे घर में घुस के मारूंगा बहनचोद. And वो डील आउट करने पे बहुत दिक्कतें होती है यार. एंड इन सब के बाद ही द वर्स्ट थिंग इज दैट इन सब के बाद तुम्हारा एक्सेप्टेंस आता है.
Just to add one more thing to the point, जब तुमने बोला कि सबके friends होते हैं, you can always share it with your friends, but one thing that I am sorry to break it to everyone and to you also कि सबके अलग चुतियाप चल रहे होते हैं यार लाइफ में. सबके अलग,
अग्री.
मतलब तुम किसी को जाके ठंडी रोना कर लो यार कि यार फक मेरा ब्रेकअप हो गया, ये वो अपने आके बोलेगा यार मेरी तो जॉब चली गई. अब तुम मैं जो अपना रोगे कि उसको उसको तुम वो करोगे, मतलब तुम समझ
राइट.
रहे हो ना मैं क्या. तो दैट इज
राइट.
लाइक सब तो हम पे ही भूल जाते हैं वी, मतलब हम कंपैशनेट होना भूल जाते हैं यार,
यार
क्या
वो
करें.
हर जगह है. मतलब एवरीवन सॉर्ट ऑफ जस्ट सफरिंग थ्रू लाइफ. ये मैंने पिछले पॉडकास्ट में भी बोला था कि व्हेन यू लुक एट एन इंडिविजुअल एंड व्हाट दे आर गोइंग थ्रू, यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट एवरीवन जस्ट सफरिंग. So, but yeah, the few good things that I want to say to anyone who's listening to it, and this is, I think, this was the very reason why I wanted to have this podcast, was कि ना मतलब I don't want to capitalize on someone else's suffering, Anuj, because this is what people do, right? They just intentionally make things about sadness, or because everyone would relate, and then they would get that clout. मेरा purpose था कि if anyone is listening to this, right, it sort of helps them, because right now with COVID-19 and everything, this is the worst time to be in, and people do not give themselves as much credit as they should. But at least if you're dealing, अभी survival difficult है. And I'm not just saying कि तुमको कोविड हो जाएगा. अगर तुमको कुछ नहीं भी हो रखा है तब भी तुम्हारे लिए सर्वाइवल डिफिकल्ट है. इट्स लाइक इट्स सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू जस्ट गिव योरसेल्फ क्रेडिट फॉर सर्वाइविंग राइट नाउ. बट उन सब के एडिशन में अगर तुम्हारे साथ कुछ ऐसा होता है, आई जस्ट वांट टू से कि यार it's unfortunate that this happened to you. And it's really shitty and you did not deserve this. But that does not mean that what happened to you is not real. I understand that you don't want to accept it, and I understand that you did not deserve it, and you can just go on and wallow in your sadness. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that इस सब का consequence सिर्फ तुमको ही face करना है. तो अगर तुम किसी को जाके बोल रहे हो, it's very important to go ahead and talk to people, because in doing that you sort of accept the situation and you come to reality, and you sort of have someone to help you out in that. It's like take emotional trauma as an analogy to physical weakness. अगर तुम physically suffer कर रहे हो, you would reach out to someone for help, right? Similarly, it's very important that when you're going through emotional trauma, you need it's important to have someone who can sort of help you out in it. मतलब, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to tell you what to do. there is no how to guide that anyone can say कि ना, okay, go, you know what, you lost a parent, एक काम कर, धनिया मिर्च में पानी डाल के पी जा, everything would be okay. There is no such step, but there is just something that, you know, dude, I lost a parent. You know, dude, I had this breakup and it's very sad. Like there, and it's सबका सबका रोना generic होता है यार इन stages में. Like यार, I lost someone. You know, मेरा breakup हो गया and this is what I feel, and everyone feels the same things. It's like यार, I lost a person who was very dear to me, and ना मेरा मैं दिन में ना उससे डेली बात करता था, और मैं जब भी मतलब कभी कुछ होता था मेरे साथ, तो शी वाज देयर टू लिसन टू इट, एंड she was just living those experiences with me, and I wasn't going through so I wasn't imagining a future with her, but na, whenever I saw a future, she was just still there, and I wanted to experience those things with her. Or na, let's say if there's a parent who passes away, it's like yaar, my parent, like they were the one who wanted to see me at this stage, you know, who had plans for me, who had visions for me. So I think that is all, Anuj. Do you have anything to say to anyone who's listening to this right now?
Just I would like to say कि stay strong यार, मतलब bad times don't last forever. And मैं तो बस यही बोलूंगा, like even though if you are going through hard times अभी, then they are, you are going to become a better person out of it. And when you look back कि you know अभी तुमको लग रहा रहेगा भाई कि गलत टाइम चल रहा है, but when you come out of it, तब you will, when you look back, then you'll see यार I have come a long way from it. And तुम्हारी जो जर्नी रहेगी वो भी बहुत अच्छी रहेगी, and what you have become, उससे तुमको ज्यादा प्राउड फील होएगा यार कि मैं I have become a person, you know, that I wanted to be. So that is something, you know, you should always be thankful. Obviously loss तो भर नहीं सकते कभी भी, but this thing what you become out of it will always be remembered. And especially people around you also start appreciating you for the person you have.
Absolutely. And I think one of the very amazing things that you have said in this is ki, you look back and you realize that, you know, oh, I've come a long way. Because I have felt this. Dealing with loss is not forgetting about the loss. It is accepting the loss. It is not something where it's like, oh, you talk about the person who's not there in your life anymore, and you sort of go like, who? Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter to me anymore. Or you know, it's not about forgetting them, or it shouldn't also be like, oh, you're going all right, and the minute someone takes a name, you sort of go numb. Accepting the loss is where you understand that this person is not, or this thing is not a part of you anymore, or no part of your life anymore. And it's okay. It's yeah, I understand that. I've dealt with it. I've had my grief. I went through it, and now I'm a better person. And I think all the negative bad experiences that I have had in my life, Anuj, whenever I look back at them, right, I'll tell you what, there was this one place where you know, I stayed for some time, and I was very sad when I was there. I was in depression, like I was in proper depression. And a few months, and I left that place, and a few months later, I went back to that place, and I felt those panic attacks, and I couldn't stay in that place. I had to come back. And you know, after a year or something, when I was in a very comparatively better state, I went back and I smiled so wide because I had become a better person. And that those are the things that happen to you, oh, when you look back at stuff, right? So it's and just to look, I think this is the last sentence that I'll say, and we'll end the podcast. To look back at something, you have to move on from it and go forward. You have to leave that thing behind in order to look back at it.